Welcome to the regular meeting of council, Tuesday, October the 5th, 2021, 4:40 p.m. Meeting called to order, and we'll have a moment of silence. Approval of the agenda.
Moved by Stacy White, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held on October 5th, 2021, beginning at 4:40 p.m. be approved as circulated to all members of council.
All in favor? Motion carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Councillor Shaba.
Yes, Your Worship, I have two. Item number 6.4. My business, we're a member of Chamber of Commerce. And item number 6.6. I've been informed by my office that we're a subcontractor to the general contractor for this project. Thank you.
Okay, duly noted. Petitions and delegations. Welcome Dr. Audrey Penner, Northern College, and Audrey, welcome again. And would you introduce your fellow participants?
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship. I have a few people with me today. Very pleased to have them join. We have two of our Board of Governors, Helen Studholm and Jeff Molyneux. And as well, I have two of my management team from the Kirkland Lake campus, Drew Enoy and David Rossi. Drew may not have his camera on. He's not got great Wi-Fi where he's linking in from, so he's probably not got the picture on. But they are joining me today, and very pleased to be here. Did you want me to go ahead with my presentation now?
Okay, carry on.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate being here. And what I'm going to do is try to share my screen, and hopefully this will work. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
All right. So we're one down and a few to go. So thank you for that. Very, very pleased to be here today. It's a little over a year since the last time I came and spoke to council, and we're trying to get here every year. So as you're well aware, Kirkland Lake was the college's first campus. It began as Northern Institute of Technology, and it's been a part of the public college system in its establishment, so that's a great history. We're into a new era. It's not just COVID, but also new people. So for myself, for anyone that I haven't met at the council, my name's Audrey Penner, and I'm president and CEO of Northern College. And this is a picture of me when I had my COVID hairdo. I'm able to get it cut now again, so it's a little better. But I've been in that role for a little over a year, and I began at Northern College in 2014, for anybody that is not familiar with me. And we have, as I already introduced my delegation, we have Jeff, who is also second vice chair of the Board of Governors, Helen, who's a general member of the Board of Governors, David Rossi, Dean of Business, Alternate and Flexible Learning, and Drew Enoy, who's the manager for Kirkland Lake Campus. So I really thank them for joining me today. So proud to be North, proud to be Northern. This is our motto as part of our new strategic plan, and we believe in empowerment through learning and that we can build a better world. And those are not just words on paper. Those are things that I'm trying to bring to life in the organization on a day-to-day basis. We're committed to building community like yours across the North through partnerships and excellence in education. And I thought this was a particularly good shot, the Northern College 50 Years in Your Community. That was actually made by some of our welding students a couple of years ago, so it's nice to have that memorabilia that the students are producing. So moving forward as a college, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and I wanted to highlight some of them. Digital transformation is one, and my internal techie people don't like me using that word, but I think what we're trying to describe, for those of us that are not technology people, we're trying to describe that we have to do things in more of a digitized format. The one-click, two-click to get where you need to go in terms of student information, in terms of employee information. That's the way of the future, and we need to smooth out our processes to try and get to that point, and that means a change in a lot of our processes and the way we're doing things, so that's an opportunity going forward. As an institution, we have started last year on some significant looks at equity, diversity, and inclusion, thinking that as a college and under the microscope of COVID, it's become quite apparent that no matter what we were doing in equity, diversity, inclusion, there was always more to do, and we had to take a sincere look at that, and we're in the process of doing that now, and to the point where we're actually measuring how we do using the global benchmarks for equity, diversity, and inclusion. Talent pipelines are another opportunity. We have actually signed talent pipelines with a few companies. We have a few more in the queue. And the talent pipelines are about working closely with industry, not just so they have access to our graduates, but we actually work with them from the start through the recruiting process, involved with equipment purchases with them, perhaps share subject matter expertise, development for new programs, and all those things. So we're very pleased to see those. That's a unique concept in the system. We are one of the few colleges doing that. Micro-credentials is another aspect that's changing, and that's in the credential framework at the colleges. And micro-credentials represent discrete units of learning that are not as big as a course, but if you put enough of them together, you could get to the point where you had credit for a course or perhaps even more. And this is becoming well recognized across the system as the way to fill the skills gap that is a consistent part of what we're going through in the rapid change of COVID and automation and the use of AI, all of those things. We're broadening our recruitment efforts. We've done a very, very good job on recruitment this year, and we'll continue to do that. And we're also very focused on data-driven decision-making. And what we've done is we've established another role in the college. We've taken our director of IT role, and we've increased the responsibility there so that we have a chief information officer that is going to centralize our data, centralize our processing, and do more in terms of evidence-based decision-making, connecting silos of data that we perhaps never connected before. The challenges that we're certainly facing, and no surprise to anyone, COVID-19, that's been a really difficult thing to work through, and I have to give credit to our faculty, our staff, our administration group, how well people have risen to the challenge. But people are getting tired. It is a very stressful situation to deal with, as you're probably well aware. We have a declining regional population, and that's something that's no surprise to anyone. We have evolving student needs. Our students have become increasingly interested in the kinds of areas that traditionally we didn't have as much to do with. We're proud of our status in terms of our support for students with ability challenges, and we continue to do more. And mental health has become increasingly more dominant in our discussion with students and even with our employees. We have a strategic mandate agreement that we've signed with the province, and there's another 3 years left on the strategic mandate agreement, and performance-based funding is now included in that agreement, although the government has waived the performance measure. They still take the measures, but they've waived the performance funding envelope to go with it in light of COVID and the stresses that we've been under. And a significant challenge, and I think of all of the ones I've listed, the most significant challenge for us is speed to market with our products. We work within a framework that is fairly rigid, dictates how and when we can do things, and getting things from idea to a product that we're actually delivering, we need to increase the speed with which we do that, and we are working very diligently on that. There is no magic solution, though it will take some time. So at a glance, let's take a look at the Kirkland Lake campus. Our total student enrollment going down to 2020 was really, it was going up and down, but I'm very pleased to say that our enrollment is up 40% this year. We're really excited about that, and we do potentially predict another increase next year. This is our table of official data that we submit to the ministry every year. We do that as what's called the CSER report, and this is the official data we have submitted as of fall 2020. That's because we run a little bit behind, so we don't yet have the 21 official data on board yet. We haven't officially reported that. That is coming soon, but so that's why we're just a year late on that one. But it's been a record year at Northern. Very, very pleased for our applicants. We've seen a 12% increase in our applications. In terms of our offers, now this is part of the enrollment funnel that we deal with every year, and it's for us, we're quite used to these terms. They might not be for everybody, but we're happy to explain anything that people aren't clear on. We had a 13% increase in offers, so a person can apply and then we offer them a position. And we had 189 confirmations, which was a 7% increase. And that's overall. Those increases were across all of our campuses, but enrollment specifically in Kirkland Lake is up by 40%. And I'm very pleased to say that Northern College is one of the few colleges that had an overall increase in enrollment this year, and our overall increase was around 7%. And we are only one of two colleges that was above 5% in the overall increase. So we're very proud of what we're doing. We're hoping to be very future focused. We are returning to some on-site learning at the campus. This is not moving quite as quickly as we anticipated. We're still being very, very cautious, safety first, safety on all campuses. So we have not yet brought back all classes to face-to-face learning. There's still a great deal of distance and online learning going on. We're also finding the students are really appreciating the flexibility. We're getting that feedback. I have 2 children at home, so it's nice if I can do this online. I have a job as well, so it's nice if I can do this in the evenings online. So we're trying to find the best case scenarios for all our students in this time frame, and we've done so much work with the online. We do consider ourselves somewhat pioneers of it. Very dynamic learning environments. Our faculty did a brilliant job of converting on very short notice to what we had to do and have maintained that standard. And we are starting to look at stronger supports around developing the online learning environment and assuring that can be as interactive as possible. I also mentioned the digital transformation, looking at where we can really remove the friction in our processes that we want to offer to students and to our staff. And hopefully a very modern approach to education. Education is changing. What we're going to see in the next 10 years will be very different than what we saw in the turn of the century in the year 2000. And then that is partially driven by things that were going to happen anyway around automation, around digital technology and digital transformation, but it's also been really accelerated through COVID. Many of my colleagues will say we did 10 years worth of work in 1 year to move where we're at. So some strategic updates. Since visiting you last year, we have completed our strategic plan, and our vision is empowerment through learning to build a better world. Our mission is building community across the North through partnerships and excellence in education. And our motto is proud to be North and proud to be Northern. And we're so proud to say that, if you pardon the pun. We're really, really pleased with how we are able to utilize that and talk about the different things that we can do in the North and be proud of the North to encourage people to come here. Some points of focus within the strategic plan. We have Indigenous education and empowerment, focused very much on becoming the college of choice for Indigenous people. Innovative approaches to access. So access is not just about what you learn, but it's how you learn it, and making sure we have access for different abilities, access for distance, access in the digital divide. All of those aspects of access are really important for us to consider. And invigorating Northern experiences. We are really bragging about how wonderful it is to live in the North. The water, the space, the lakes, the wilderness, the exciting opportunities to do things in camps, campgrounds, those kinds of things. So those are our 3 points of focus within the strategic plan, and very, very pleased to launch that last January. A strong foundation, really important to assure our communities. We are on very solid financial footing. We right now have a very sustainable future, and we are putting the North back in Northern. Very much proud of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So weathering the pandemic, I thought it was important to report back to our communities around how we did during the pandemic. And I'm not saying we did a perfect job. There was lots of things we could have done better. But at the end of the day, we are the only college that can say the following three things, the only college in the system. We had 0 outbreaks at more than any of our campuses. We had 0 COVID-19 related program closures. And we had 0 permanent layoffs. We did do some temporary furloughs, but we did it with redeploying staff and ensuring that we brought staff back full time. And that was a trifecta we're very proud of, and that we actually did all of that and still had 728 graduates is something that we're very, very proud of. So building on the success, I wanted to talk a little bit specifically about the Kirkland Lake campus. We're doing the rejuvenation of parking lots, roadways, walkways at the Kirkland Lake campus. This is phase 1, so we'll do half of them. And in the upcoming 18 months, we will do the other half. Mechanical upgrades to the aging HVAC equipment, which is continuation of a multi-year program. And building envelope upgrades, brick replacement, including doors and glazing of multiple entrances at the KL campus. And this doesn't sound, may not sound exciting, but we're very pleased to show the investment back in the building. It's a proud old building. We'd like to get it back to its original splendor. We have committed I'm just going to go back to that. We've committed $3.2 million over the next 18 months into infrastructure within the campus. And I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. And that's in addition to approximately a little over $1 million that we've committed over the last year. So looking at solid investments in making sure that the campus is rejuvenated and our infrastructure is working and working well. On the bigger picture, a lot of activity with our scholarships, bursary awards. We've got a new portal that makes it easier for students to apply. We're just evaluating that now. We've done a rebrand of alumni and foundation as well as the college. And we've been aligning our initiatives around alumni to parallel what we're trying to do in recruitment and retention as well, because our alumni are as much a part of our family as our students that are in the programs right now. And branding empowerment, this is something that was overdue for us to do. We've done a lot of effort in actually branding our college, and the branding includes representing the North, caring communications, selling the wild being the wonderful wilderness that we live in and the opportunities for seeing the natural wildlife that we have in this area, and inspiring excellence at the same time. We have branding guidelines that we're just beginning to roll out to all our departments, and we're gradually rolling over everything into this branding alignment. And investment and expansion, here's where I get to talk a little bit more about what we're investing in the KL campus. We're investing in about $3.2 million over the next 2 fiscal years. And we have some exciting programs, areas of expansion that we're going to be announcing shortly. Environmental sciences and mining reclamation will be the key areas. And we're looking at new programming within those, more than one program. And there's still a lot of work to do on those. I'm announcing it here today because it is really something we want to make sure people are aware that we're working towards. There's a bit of a runway for this too. I want to let people know that this is not something, when we say we're going to do a program, we can't snap it in place overnight. There's a bit of a runway to get it, but we are already starting to work on these programming needs. And the programming needs, the way I see it in this area, are in response to our expansion of mining. So although the mining programs are already in place, what hasn't been really looked at in this area is our environmental responses to the mining. So you're well aware we already have an environmental technician wastewater program in Kirkland Lake campus. We're looking at expanding that and looking at mining water reclamation, other components of environmental monitoring, environmental safety, and environmental access. We're also launching an agribusiness in partnership with Algonquin College out of Kirkland Lake. I'm hoping we will have the public announcement of that before the end of October. That will be a virtual announcement, but that's a really great partnership and addresses some of the growing agricultural industry that we have in the region. And we're also looking at an innovation hub of applied research that will be centered in the Kirkland Lake campus, linked to environmental sciences and mining reclamation. Now, there's an awful lot to be done here. We'll be looking at biomass technology. We'll be looking at biomass heating systems. We'll be looking at how you integrate all of that to really assure the environment can be built upon with mining going on and the extensive mining that is going on in the region. And this was a significant gap that we noticed when we looked at what needed to be done to support our expansion in mining industries. So we're really excited about that. I talked to Mayor Kylie, I guess it's about 2 weeks ago, and I said, you know, we're in the process now of working towards getting those funds, acquiring those funds through the ministry. It's not a done deal. I want to be very clear that this is something we're starting, and the signs are looking good that this will be successful, but I can't guarantee that we will get everything we need, but we have a lot of moving parts in this proposal, and there's things that will come out of it regardless of government support one way or the other. One thing I can guarantee is we won't get it if we don't ask, so it's very important to have the plan and to continue to ask. So educating excellence overall across the college, our 4 campuses, we're identifying future in-demand career areas. This is a bit of a typo. We're saying creating 8 new programs. There's 8 areas where we are expanding in and hope to expand in over the next 2 years. And I've already mentioned a few of them in relation to Kirkland Lake campus. There's some other areas that we're looking at expanding as well. And it's trying to keep up with the changing needs in automation and in the changing needs with technology, zero carbon emissions, all of those things that are changing so rapidly. We're expanding trades programming. We have just applied for a TDA in auto body collision. We're hopeful that we will get approved on that. And we're developing enhanced computer science options. And this is another area we're expanding in Kirkland Lake, where we will have cohorts in computer sciences, but we are looking at going beyond the computer science programming we currently have and perhaps getting into cybersecurity and also more of a computer science program. So exciting things happening there, and definitely a need for technology expertise in the region. So trying to meet that need. So I wanted to come to an end of this just to show you, we had an open house and we were celebrating with the students last year, and the winner of our laptop, we had a door prize, winner of our laptop was one of our students from Kirkland Lake, and so I thought it'd be nice to include this, her expression of appreciation. I think it's so nice when students take the time to send us a note, and this was even handwritten and mailed to us, which makes it even more exciting. So I thought I would share that with you. She was so thrilled, and we're getting more of that kind of feedback from students, acknowledgement and thank you, and we're trying very hard to listen to student needs to assure that we are indeed meeting them. And I have to give credit to our communications and marketing department. Our monitoring of social media is giving us heads up much faster about things that students are concerned about and that they need support with. And again, we're just trying to respond. So I wanted to thank the community for their support, some very exciting times ahead, and looking forward to getting to the other side of COVID and some semblance of normalcy. But again, this is an exciting time for colleges, and I think what we're doing is taking the best of what we've learned from our experiences through COVID and inserting them back into our everyday work so that we can come out this other end stronger and better. I think President Biden says build back better. I'm not a big fan of emulating everything that is American, but I think that's a really strong point. And we want to come back and be even better than we have ever been. So on that note, I'm going to close my, there. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have. I know I talk very quickly, and I do that when I get excited about things, so I talk even faster, which is not helpful for those listening, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councillor Shaba.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Dr. Penner and the delegation. I have a few questions for you. One is the enrollment in Kirkland Lake. I'm happy to see that is going up by 40%. So based on the numbers that you've indicated, that to me would be something close to 230 something. So out of this number, can you tell us how many are domestic students and how many are international students? And how are we doing in trying to attract international students? That's one of my questions. Your worship, would you like me to put my question on the table or one at a time?
One at a time. Audrey, if you want to answer that. Sure.
Well, thank you for that, Councillor Shaba. That's a really good question. I don't have the exact breakdown with me of international versus domestic. Our international is down. It has, with COVID and the travel, it has been harder for them to get here. And one of the things where we have overall, I can give you the overall number for the entire college, we have 286 international students right now. How many of them have started in NKL? I don't have that number. So my guesstimate would be that the majority would be domestic students currently. As you're well aware, our environmental technician program does tend to attract more international students, so that's where you would see more.
Yeah, the other thing that your people on the ground might know is housing, student housing.
Yeah.
I mean, housing is a big challenge everywhere and not very unique to Kirkland Lake. And just for the record, we do know we have student residents in Haileybury campus, student residents in Porcupine campus. And I do recall that a few years back, there was some articulation agreement with a private partnership for student residents, but that did not work out. The fact remains that a lot of, I mean, we like to retain the foreign students or all students that come to our community, but housing is becoming such a challenge that you know, we may as well, you know, look at the prospect of losing some of those people if they can't find a place to live. So what is in your plan from the college looking ahead to try to work with staff and the municipality and all other stakeholders in the municipality to try to look at student housing, which is really a big problem now. I mean, Salvation Army, they're helping as much as they can, putting students in hotel for one night at a time. But I hate to see any of those students come to Kirkland Lake and because of lack of housing, make a U-turn and to other campuses. So what is the plan of the college to address to help? I mean, it's our collective problem, I take it, but what do you guys have for us to hang our hat on in terms of trying to address student housing shortages?
Yeah, well, and actually it's a really good question, and it's a question that I've heard at the other council meetings as well. And well, student housing is something that you've talked about in isolation. I really think our role here is to work more closely with the municipalities on housing initiatives in general and what we can do there. And what I've been proposing to the other councils is that we develop some sort of interdisciplinary committee to look at what we can do to attract housing that's broader. If we do student housing exclusively, that doesn't help the communities with other housing needs they have, which I'm hearing loudly and clearly is a significant factor in the other communities. So I would broach that if there's an opportunity for the council to set up something of that nature that we can work on. How do we promote housing in general that could be serviceable to everybody? Because you've got workers moving into town, we've got students moving into town. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of moving parts to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, Audrey, that's a very good point. It really is a partnership with the college and the community to make housing available. And I know right now our senior staff have been looking towards where we can expand housing in subdivisions and whatnot, because we do have a definite shortage.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's the case across the country. So we will continue to work on that as well.
Yeah, and perhaps we can be back in touch, Mayor Kiley, about some potential joint committees and things like that to see what we can do to put together. We have had some interest expressed by companies wanting to look at coming in for building for renovations for student housing. That hasn't moved very far. It's a very competitive market, and it's a challenging market to tap into as well, because these are now third-party agents that do that.
Councillor Owen.
This is not a question, it's just a comment. I really like your new slogan there, proud to be North, proud to be Northern. I want to congratulate you on that. The commercials that I've seen on CTV have been excellent. That's something that few colleges can actually promote is lifestyle like we have in the North. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't like the old one, come study, play and live, or whatever it was.
Steady state play, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The play part, yes. I mean, the university and college, yes, the play part's there. I don't think you needed to put that in. But no, I just want to congratulate you on that. I think it's a wonderful way to play off the name of the college as well. So,
Well, and I'll pass that compliment along. Thank you for that. I'll pass that compliment along to our marketing and communications department because they're the gurus on this, and we've gotten a lot of compliments around our commercials. We got compliments at some of our other council meetings around. They're just really enjoying them, and they're almost a serenity to them, which is important. But we do love the North, and we're proud to be North. I can remember moving here 7 years ago, and people talking about Northern Ontario, and I jokingly said, well, I grew up in Manitoba in a spot that was further north than this, and it was referred to as Southern Manitoba. So it's all about the context and what you think of those words as you start to describe the areas that you're living in. But we're very proud, and we're very proud of what we do, and we're very proud of being in the North, and that's coming through loud and clear in the things that we're pushing out and promoting.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you, Dr. Penner and your delegates. This is pretty exciting news for Kirkland Lake. We love the college. Been part of our community since 1962, was it? Yeah.
We'll say it was before we were born, right? Will we say that?
Sounds good to me.
Sure.
So it adds to the lifestyle of Kirkland Lake, and we end up with some exceptional people that stay here, like Jeff.
Yep.
And many more. So I thank you on behalf of council for a great presentation, and very positive news. Hopefully, all of this comes to fruition.
We'll keep you posted. Yeah, we'll keep you posted. I want to thank my delegation for coming too. They're like everyone else, they're very proud to be part of the Northern College family, and we're just enjoy being here. We enjoy being asked. So happy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion to receive.
Moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Eugene Ivanoff. Be it resolved that the delegation from Northern College be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Acceptance of minutes and recommendations.
Moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that council approve the minutes of the following meetings. Minutes of the regular meeting of council held September 21st, 2021. And that council accept the minutes of the following committee meetings. Minutes of the Kirkland Lake Library Board meeting held June 17th, 2021.
All in favor? Motion carried. Reports of municipal officers and communications. We'll have an update on COVID from Bonnie Sackrider, Director of Community Services. Bonnie?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council. Mandatory vaccinations for both staff and patrons is becoming a reality in some of our municipal facilities. As part of the government's plan to protect long-term care residents and staff during the Delta-driven fourth wave, COVID-19 vaccinations will become mandatory for all Tech Pioneer resident staff, support workers, students, and volunteers by November 15th, 2021, unless a staff member has a valid medical exception. Staff who do not have all required doses or a valid medical exemption by the deadline will not be able to enter a long-term care home to work. Newly hired staff will be required to have fully vaccinated before they begin working in a home unless they have a valid medical exemption. Homes will begin randomly testing fully vaccinated individuals, including staff, caregivers, and visitors, to help detect possible breakthrough cases of COVID-19 as early as possible. Northern Ontario medical officers of health continue to put the health and safety of residents first. Effective October 14th, all instructors of any indoor organized sport will be required to be vaccinated. For municipal staff, this includes swim lesson instructors as well as fitness instructors. Activities related to organized sports have the potential to increase COVID-19 transmission, specifically close contact, heavy breathing, long exposure times, crowded indoor spaces, and masks being removed during physical activity all contribute to increased risk of COVID-19 transmission. Requiring more groups to be protected with vaccinations will help reduce this risk while maintaining opportunities for sport. As of September 22nd, all individuals who enter the community complex must show proof of full vaccination as well as proof of ID unless they meet an approved provincial exemption, such as children under 12, patrons under 18 who are participating in an organized sport, or patrons with a written document by a physician or nurse practitioner stating that they are exempt for a medical reason and the effective time period. Unfortunately, some patrons are not at their finest right now, and employee abuse is on the rise. After months of COVID-19 restrictions, many people are anxious, uncertain, and frustrated, and they're more likely to take it out on staff. Others may think COVID-19 is a hoax and refuse to follow public health requirements, such as showing proof of vaccination status and ID. As a reminder to all patrons, any sort of employee abuse is unacceptable and it will not be tolerated. The Occupational Health and Safety Act sets out duties of workplace parties and patrons who are unable to respect the rules and are asked to leave the premises. This concludes the COVID-19 update.
Any questions from council? None noted. Are there any other further reports from municipal officers? Oh, sorry. Councilor Owen?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. I've been to the arena, to the complex a couple times recently to take my grandson to hockey, and the delays at the front door are very minimal. They're shorter delays than if you were lining up to get into a junior A game. The staff has been very courteous and respectful. So I think they're doing a good job up there under the current conditions. And it's sure nice to see the kids back on the ice and enjoying themselves. So my congratulations to the staff that have a difficult job to do up there.
Thank you, Councilor Owen. We'll move on to item 6.2, fitness for duty policy. Ms. Cassandra Young.
Motion.
Motion to accept, receive that report.
Moved by Casey Owen, seconded by Lad Shaba. Be it resolved that the COVID-19 verbal update be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.2, fitness for duty policy, Ms. Cassandra Young, HR Supervisor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Council. So in late 2018, Wishart Law Firm had created a fitness for duty policy, and it has been used by the town since its implementation date. The policy is important because it helps to ensure that reasonable steps are taken to provide a healthy and safe working environment to all members of our staff and volunteers and contractors and everybody else that's involved in the corporation. When we created our new policy manual, unfortunately, this policy was missed, and therefore today our staff are recommending that the approved policy be placed in the corporate policy manual and that it is uploaded to the town's website. I'm available to answer any questions if there are any.
Councilor Owen.
Okay, if we have an employee that comes forward with an addiction issue, what exact supports do we supply them as employees?
So we currently have an EFAP program. It's Employee Family Assistance Program. That's something that we would direct them to. We also would, it would depend on the scenario, and it would depend on how it impacts the rest of the staff and the public, I would guess, depending on the position. But we would, of course, support our staff any way that we could possible.
Just on a follow-up on that, the insurance that our employees have, does that cover the cost of going to a treatment facility for addiction?
So we do have some coverage depending. I couldn't tell you exactly which facility, but I do know through Canada Life, which is our health, dental, vision insurance policy, there is coverage to help pay for that. Rehab assistance.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. The reason I'm asking is because that's for many people in recovery, that's an essential thing, depending on the person, depending on where they go. And it is very expensive. And so that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Motion?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Yeah,
Chapa.
I've read the fitness for duty policy. The one from the lawyer, I guess, is all or nothing. So do we have local substance abuse professionals that are available to staff, or they have to go out of town?
So we do have a contact for a substance abuse professional. We haven't had to use it very often, but that is available for our staff.
Okay. Thank you.
Motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that the memorandum number 2021 HR 13 entitled Fitness for Duty Policy be received, and that staff be directed to insert the approved policy into the corporate policy manual and upload it to the town's website.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.3, award of RFP 570-21, pay equity and compensation review. Cassandra, continue.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Council. So on August 23rd of this year, 2021, an RFP was issued to seek services of a qualified consulting firm to conduct a compensation and pay equity review. We were able to receive four proposals where our highest ranking proponents tied with a score of 88%. However, Company A did present the most affordable bid at $43,121 pre-tax. Further, Company A also had identified that they could offer additional value-added services for the municipality. So staff are recommending the addition of the following services. There is information sessions for employees to ensure early engagement. There is review meetings with staff once evaluation is complete to ensure employee validation. And then there is also a completion of a financial impact analysis associated with implementing the new salary grids and an implementation strategy to mitigate costs. So unfortunately, this amount for the compensation and pay equity review was not included in the 2021 capital request, and there would be an expected 23 to 25,000 to be paid out of the 2021 budget. However, this could be taken from our organization restructuring and efficiency reserve. And overall, it is estimated that the project would cost about $51,000. So staff are recommending that council awards the RFP to Gallagher Benefit Services Group and that staff be directed to present a bylaw to execute an agreement. So I am available to answer any questions should there be any.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah, thank you. I read the information. They definitely seem like a very competent organization, and personally, I don't find that price outrageous. But I am curious as to what the other companies bid to provide service. Normally, we get that information, and I don't. It's blank on the information we were given.
So I could provide that with you to you. If you just give me 2 seconds to go through, I just have a couple pages here. My apologies. So so there was another bid that came in. It was $78,400 pre-tax. We also had another bid that came forward, which was, sorry about that, $76,050 pre-tax. And then we had another proposal that came through that was quite more expensive than the rest, which was $126,000. So the one that we are recommending is the lowest bid.
Oh, thanks very much for the information. It's just I like to have that information when I'm voting on something. Like I say, I read the information on the company. They certainly seem more than competent, and to me, that price seems, even before hearing the other prices, seems quite reasonable for the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Councillor Shaba?
Hello, can you share with us the timeline for this review? Maybe it's already in here somewhere, you know, after this tonight, what are we looking at? 6 months, 9 months, a year? What will be the timeline? When do we get the review completed? Thank you.
Yes, so you'll see in the attachment, it was attachment number 2 of the report. It was part of their proposal. It is in the back, it's Appendix B. We're looking at having it wrapped up. It goes until about the mid to end of February. That could take a little bit longer or less depending on how fast we can move through the timeline.
Any other comments or questions? Oh, Councillor White?
Cassandra, do you know how often a pay equity review should be done? Is there a standard timeline?
So it's actually pretty good to review pay equity on an annual basis. It's good to have a review. It wouldn't have to be so extensive as this if we kept up with review as we were going, but there is some legislation on that, so I could get you a little bit more information if you'd like.
Well, I'm just wondering if there would be any benefit to actually putting funds away yearly in the budget, in the corporate budget, to prepare ourselves for this when it needs to happen again. So that was basically where I was going with the question. So that's just something, a heads up for staff during budget deliberations next year. So that's perfect. Thank you so much.
The motion?
We do have a recommended motion. I just want to note that I added a little bit of extra text to the recommendation that's in front of you. So it addresses the dollar amount as well as saying where the funds are going to be drawn from for 2021. So the motion I have is moved by Lad Shaba, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that report number 2021-HR-14 entitled Award of RFP 57021 Pay Equity and Compensation Review be received. That council hereby awards RFP 57021 Pay Equity and Compensation Review to Gallagher Benefits Services Canada Group, Inc. in the amount of $43,121 plus HST. That $51,000 will be earmarked for this project, with required payments in 2021 to be drawn from the Organization Restructuring and Efficiency Reserve, and the remaining balance to be budgeted in 2022. And that staff be directed to present a bylaw to execute an agreement with Gallagher Benefit Services Canada Group, Inc. to complete the terms of RFP 57021.
Any further comments? None noted. All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.4, Chamber of Commerce 2021 Community Grant Application. Wilf Haas.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council. The municipality received an application from the Chamber of Commerce. It is for $2,736 in support of the annual Christmas parade, as well as a donation of 200 swim passes valued at $884. The application would be honored, should Council decide, through the Community Grants Program. That program was set up by Council in 2019 to support activities of non-for-profit groups in the community. Historically, the Chamber had partners that picked up the costs to a great extent in terms of the parade. In terms of with COVID and everything else, this support has dropped off. Whether it will come back or not is something that obviously no one can say at this point. But given what the stresses that the community has gone through, staff believe that the support of the parade as well as the trick-or-treat swim passes would be a boost to the morale of the community and would perhaps encourage other events such as this to come forward. Hence, staff do recommend the application to Council.
Any comments or questions from council members? None noted. We have a motion.
Moved by Stacy White, seconded by Eugene Ivanov. Be it resolved that report number 2021-Dev-049 entitled Chamber of Commerce 2021 Community Grant Application be received, and that council approve a maximum $2,736.72 disbursement in support of the annual Christmas parade and a donation of 200 swim passes valued at $884 in support of the Chamber of Commerce's annual Halloween scavenger hunt, to be drawn from the Community Grants Program as per the application submitted by the Kirkland Lake District Chamber of Commerce.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.5, Heritage North sale proceeds. Will Foss, Director of Economic Development. Go ahead, Will.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Council. This is a follow-up on a report we provided previously. The previous report did lay out some strategies for which the revenue allocated from the Heritage North sale could be applied. They were a tax stabilization reserve fund, a recreation facilities reserve fund, or a life cycle renewal, a replacement reserve fund. Council came back and asked if whether or not that the revenues, if put into a fund, could be used for other purposes, essentially to be borrowed against. We went back to the Municipal Affairs, and I'd like to thank Sherry Matthews for her assistance on this. They provided information that is, as is presented in the report, on the use of reserve and reserve funds, but the conditions are for borrowing against them. Essentially, the idea of borrowing against a fund is limited to funds of well, I have the clauses in the report, but basically it has to come from a discretionary reserve balance. The loaning or borrowing from the obligatory reserve fund is prohibited. Borrowing must not affect the intended purpose of the reserve, and a plan to repay the reserve with a reasonable time frame is required, must be documented. Interest is charged. It's equivalent to the interest the municipality would pay on its other bank fund account or fund bank accounts, and should be applied to the outstanding amount borrowed. One of the key factors was that normally borrowing against the fund is for a short-term allocation. The issue that was discussed at the previous council meeting was borrowing against the fund for the Swastika Wastewater project. That's a project that probably has a far greater timeline than what is envisioned by the ministry for the borrowing against a discretionary fund by a municipality. From that basis, we suggest it may not be in the best interest of town to do that. Interest rates are low right now. The cost of borrowing from a financial institution or Infrastructure Ontario for an extended term at a fixed rate should be explored first. Should an attractive arrangement be available, the HN revenues would provide council with additional financial flexibility to meet some of the inevitable challenges that will come up in the future, be it in terms of tax stabilization, life cycle replacement, or even borrowing for other purposes. Our recommendation to council, based on the discussion that happened at the previous meeting, was that the money would be allocated to a life cycle reserve, replacement reserve fund.
Comments or questions? Councillor Rowan?
Yeah. I'm in favor of the life cycle replacement option. We know that we have to purchase 2 backhoes. We know that we have to purchase 1 ladder fire truck in the very near future. Those are both near future needs, and they're must-haves. They're not optional. So, and I believe those purchases would fit in the life cycle reserve fund qualifications. But I have one other question, which may affect my decision. When acting CIO Don Studholm was here, we were told we had a $3 million surplus in our last budget. And I'd like to know where that money is, because there may be an opportunity here to combine this money with that $3 million that we were told was in surplus, and use it to continue the good work that's been done so far on sidewalks. And as of recent, I haven't had a vehicle again, and I've had to walk to some places I don't normally walk, and sidewalks are dangerous, not to mention roads. So I'd like to know where that surplus money is before we make any decisions.
Well, that would be up to the treasurer. We have,
I'm sorry, I was about to say that that would be a question that should be directed to Treasury. It's beyond my scope. Perhaps it could be from a motion from council, or?
Yeah, I'm just saying that there are, potentially other options if in fact we do have. Now, I don't know, maybe well, surplus is surplus. That means we've met all our budget requirements. But I don't think it's wise to necessarily make a decision today if we don't know where that $3 million is, or if it exists in actual dollars. So, quite frankly, not knowing and not being able to get an answer today, which I didn't expect to, I think this issue should be deferred to our next council meeting, when we have a clearer picture of what the finances actually are in the town.
If I may comment, Councillor Owen, one of the things I recall you added to an agenda a month or two ago with a breakdown of how we would use that $3 million. And there was, it was split amongst 5 or 6 different areas, including the ones that you mentioned today. So as far as the allocation of it, that was passed in a resolution, I believe.
I'm just trying to pull up some past minutes to see if it was addressed during the budget time, but I haven't come across anything yet. Yes, here we are. June 8th, we had a special meeting of council and a motion was passed that, yes, council hereby approves the following transfers of the 2020 operating surplus of $3,063,009, and it was a breakdown to stabilization reserve, reserve of working capital, reserve of infrastructure capital, reserve fund for library purposes, reserve fund, reserve for working funds, and the remaining to be utilized to reduce the 2021 tax levy.
Thank you, and I apologize. That didn't come fresh to my mind. So yeah, I would be in favor of the end of life is what I call it, reserve fund, because we know we have 3 major purchases, and I'm sure we have others as well that have to be done in the next year or less.
Councillor Adams.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of the life cycle replacement fund, but as our consultants have said in the past, it's about budgeting for the future. So hopefully this isn't a reserve fund that departments don't feel the need to budget for their asset management plans because this fund exists. Hopefully people can still budget year over year, knowing that things are going to come to an end, and that way we can have a long-term use of this life cycle reserve instead of just dwindling it on 3 purchases.
Any other comments? What is the motion?
We have a motion moved by Eugene Ivanov, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that report number 2021-Dev-045 entitled Heritage North Sale Proceeds Options be received, and that staff be directed to allocate the revenue realized from the sale of Heritage North towards the Life Cycle Replacement Reserve Fund.
Any further comments? None noted. All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.6. Funding alternatives for construction services for the Swastika Water Pollution Control Plant commissioning and sewer system connection. Jim Roman, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Council. I'm here to discuss how we fund the shortfall for the Swastika Wastewater project. In September, Council awarded the project to Pedersen Construction for the tendered amount of approximately $7.6 million. But this exceeded the available budget for the project by approximately $1.4 million. And so we were directed to report back on how to fund this projected deficit. There are three, I guess you would call them pools, which you could draw from. The first two being the contingency allowance and utilizing the capital waterworks or wastewater capital reserve fund. Neither of these would have an impact on wastewater rates. So, as far as the contingency allowance goes, there was a proposed $600,000 contingency in the contract. For a project of this size, I believe a 5% contingency would be sufficient, which would reduce the contingency allowance in this contract down to about $350,000. So this would reduce the deficit by $250,000. So I'm recommending reducing the contingency allowance by this $250,000. And as I said, this will not have an impact on sewer rates. Secondly, there is a wastewater capital projects reserve fund, which currently sits at about $490,000. And this could easily exceed $500,000 by year end. So I'm proposing that council draw down $268,270 from the wastewater reserve fund. Again, this won't have an impact on wastewater rates. This leaves still a deficit of $900,000, and I'm proposing that council execute a loan with Infrastructure Ontario for this $900,000 amount. We approached Infrastructure Ontario, Ontario Clean Water Agency, and a couple of the major banks for rates. And the rates from Infrastructure Ontario are by far the most favorable, ranging from 1.3% up to 2.8%, depending on the term. They offer terms of fixed terms of 5 years up to 30 years. I provided a table which shows the impact a loan of this magnitude would have on the typical sewer water bill. This project needs to be funded entirely from the wastewater budget. And when people get their bills, it's a combination of the water and the sewer bill. So this table that I've provided you shows the impact on just the wastewater component of a typical bill. So I'm proposing, or I'm suggesting a $900,000 loan for a 20-year term. This has a 3% impact on sewer rates. Now, the sewer component is 40% of your bill. So really, this means a 1.2% increase in the overall bill. It's just the sewer component that would be increasing by 3%. So I'm available to answer any questions. But as I said, I'm proposing like a three-pronged approach by utilizing the contingency allowance and the reserve funds, which would reduce the amount of loan we would require. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Councillor Owen.
Yeah. The only thing that makes me a little bit nervous is cutting down the contingency fund or money set aside, simply because this is Northern Ontario and we know there's blasting involved. And I know the pre-engineering and all those studies have been done. But it makes me a little bit nervous. So Mr. Roman, if you could just tell me you're comfortable with doing that, then I can relax.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you that in Northern Ontario, rock is always the big unknown, which is usually what these contingencies go towards. There was pre-design work done, and I'd be comfortable with reducing the contingency amount. That doesn't mean that like these contingencies are to provide an allowance for the unexpected, and that you never know what's going to turn up. But we used to do reconstruction projects in town, like Government Road, or when we rebuilt Station Road, that type of thing. And a 5% contingency was always sufficient to deal with.
Okay, good. As long as you're comfortable, I'm comfortable.
Okay, well, I'm comfortable with that amount.
Jim, I'm comfortable with your total proposal, except I would rather see us amortize this loan over 15 years instead of 20. 20 is a long time. And we've got a pool for 20 years. I don't like debt more than anybody else, but there's good debt and bad debt, so the sooner it's paid off, it's better for everybody. But it still wouldn't have a great big effect on the the water and sewer rates, and save us considerably in interest, I think, by knocking 5 years off. That's my personal opinion, anyway.
That would still, overall, a typical water bill would increase by just under 1.5% if we were to go to a 15-year term. And yes, significant savings.
Quite reasonable.
in interest.
Do you have any concerns? Any questions? How does the motion read now?
Counselor White, I have you as the mover. Would you like it to be 15 years?
I agree with Mayor Kylie. 15 years is a good term.
Counselor Adams, I have you as a seconder. Are you okay with that? Okay. So, moved by Stacy White, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that report number 2021-PW-008 entitled Funding Alternatives for Construction Services for the Swastika Water Pollution Control Plant Decommissioning and Sewer System Connection to the Kirkland Lake Wastewater Treatment Plant, hereafter referred to as the Swastika Project, be received. That $250,000 be removed from the planned contingency amount included in the contract with Peterson Construction 2013 Inc. for the Swastika Project. That $268,270 be withdrawn from the Wastewater Capital Projects Reserve Fund to be used towards funding the Swastika Project, and that staff be directed to present a bylaw to authorize the execution of an infrastructure loan with Infrastructure Ontario in the amount of $900,000 for a term of 15 years to be used for funding of the Swastika Project.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.7, Nipissing Lane resurfacing. Jim Roman.
This is to deal with the requests for quotation that we put out to pave Nipissing Lane. The low bid came in from Miller Paving Limited. The proposed design resulted in an estimated price of $119,000. However, it's being recommended that we increase the granular base before paving, Nipissing Lane. It's quite flat in there, and in order to get any sort of positive drainage, we need to tinker a bit with the road grades, and in order to do that, you need a better granular base to work with, so that where you're cutting, you're not cutting away too much of the roadbed, and you're providing enough of a base in the lower areas. So with that in mind, the projected cost for this project now would be at $141,000, and that exceeds the approved budget of $131,000. So I'm asking council to approve the additional costs for this project, up to a maximum amount of $150,000 plus HST. The price for this contract is based on quantities, and again, the quantities, while they are a fairly accurate estimate, they are still just an estimate. So it's why we're looking for a ceiling of $150,000. I don't know if there's any questions.
Jim, this is strictly resurfacing and leveling out the road itself. When was the water and sewers done on that particular street? How long ago, do you know?
I don't know offhand. That's something I could look up. We did do some storm water work in there this year in preparation for this, but offhand I don't know the age of the infrastructure in there. I could look it up. Might take a minute.
I'll leave it at that. I was just curious because normally in our residential areas that we, when we do paving, we do water and sewers at the same time after digging it up, but that's more of an industrial area.
Yeah,
Like, have the same
involved with I wasn't involved with the decision to select Nipissing Lane. I came in afterwards. I would suspect that was considered.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Owen.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of short-term pain for long-term gain. Anybody that's familiar with water and the damage that water can do to buildings, to properties, to the environment through erosion, to redo the road and not correct the drainage problems, well, we might as well not have put the storm sewers in there in the first place. And so I think this is definitely the route to go. And I think potentially it protects the town from additional liability should something happen to one of the buildings along there and it's shown that the water didn't go where it was supposed to, but it drained onto that property. So I'm in favor of this. And I suspect one of the reasons that Nipissing Lane was chosen for this project is because it was not paved in the first place. And therefore you did not have the costs of taking up the pavement that was already there and then putting pavement down. So I think, I don't know, but I'm guessing that that was a factor in order to stretch the dollars out to get more paving done for the same amount.
Any other comments? We have a motion.
Moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that report number 2021-PW-009 entitled Nipissing Lane Resurfacing be received. That council hereby awards a contract to Miller Paving Limited to provide construction services for the Nipissing Lane resurfacing in the approximate amount of $141,719 plus HST. The contract items are measured quantities. Final quantities will be known at the end of construction. That staff is hereby authorized to approve extra work within the scope of work above the budgeted amount of $131,903 plus HST to a maximum of $150,000 plus HST. That the required monies in the maximum amount of $150,000 plus HST be allocated from the gas tax funds, and that staff be directed to present a bylaw to execute an agreement with Miller Paving Limited for the above noted contract.
Any questions? None noted. All in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item 6.8. Kirkland Lake Airport future direction. Richard Charbonneau.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to council. Tonight we'll be speaking about the future directions of the Kirkland Lake Airport. Now, due to the length of the report, if council desires of me to read the report, I will. If council desires of me to get down to the meat of the report, I'll do that. Which would you prefer?
I don't think you have to reread the report, Richard. We've all read it.
Okay, so just to get to the meat of things.
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
To get to the meat of things, the airport is open every day of the week, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That goes from May 1st to October 31st yearly. This summer, we've been running the airport predominantly unmanned. A staff member goes out every day, does a visual inspection of the airport, and records any maintenance activities that need to be done, and also records the traffic that's occurred during the day and over the after hours. From November 1st to April 30th, the airport changes up a bit. It becomes a 7-day-a-week operation, and that's necessary, and that's regulated due to the safety aspect of snow and ice accumulation on the runway. However, there is leeway that we can scale back on that operation. I'll get to that in a little bit later. So we have 2 staff members at the airport right now, and they're both part-time. One acts as he seconds as a landfill tipping attendant, and the other is myself. These requirements will increase during the winter months. People are out there just about every day of the week moving around snow. It's a big area. There's a lot of regulation involved with how you can pile snow, where you can place snow, and actually how you move the snow. So it's a pretty busy place as far as snow removal goes in the wintertime. Funding opportunities, however, are virtually non-existent for this type of airport that we have here. We were certified. We've recently dropped our certification in 2018 and became a registered aerodrome now. When we dropped that certification, it dropped a lot of the more stringent regulations with Transport Canada, but it didn't absolve us of everything. We still have an onus to run a safe airport, and we still have regulations that we need to follow. Right now, the way the airport is, the infrastructure out there is aging. I've been involved with the airport for 20 years. We haven't had an upgrade at all in that time, anything measurable. The lighting systems, the equipment, virtually everything out there is coming to an end of life, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I can't tell you when those things will cease to operate and function properly. A lot of the equipment is now obsolete. Parts are hard to find. Qualified technicians to work on that aging equipment is hard to find. And if you do, they're very expensive to bring in from another locale to perform the maintenance. So where we're at, like the airport has the business at the airport decreased significantly, and it's due in part to COVID-19, of course. We don't have enough traffic. We don't generate enough revenue to justify some of the things that we would like to do at the airport. But we still have select businesses that do come in. The M&R still comes in, although not as often. We have some private plane users that have the hangar, and they rent space in the hangar, and they fly in and out regularly. Hydro periodically, mining exploration surveys, Kale Gold, they fly in, a couple of times a week. However, those landing fees and those parking fees, they don't amount to a whole lot of money contributed to the operation. The airport is important for the aspect of the medevac flights. We do get quite a few medevac flights. We're averaging a medevac flight one every 3 days. They fly specific patients out from the hospital. They do treat and returns. Some of them are emergency. Not all. A lot of the emergency flights are done with the Orange Air helicopter that lands at the hospital. Now, it's important that statement does not depreciate the value of the Kale Airport to the medical and health infrastructure. In the past, we've had stakeholder meetings, and we understand fully, and as a Kirkland Laker, and you're all fellow Kirkland Lakers, we all understand that the airport would be, prudent if one of us were in a situation where we would have to be flown for medical care. However, the airport is a discretionary municipal service, and it's not a mandated one. We've lost air service there back in the 90s. We've tried several times over the last several years to bring a company in to offer that service, but as the world turns, other places have an advanced opportunity to offer those services at a better price. In 2017, council had directed staff to hold public consultations. We did this. We've had lots of feedback that came out of those public consultations. It's all included in the back of this report. So the rationale is we're operating within the budget parameters of approved by council. The prognosis in the medium to long term is not positive. However, as noted in one of the appendices, which is Appendix A, or 3, sorry, there is an overall downward decline in revenue and a steady reduction in incoming traffic, and with companies such as Kale Gold going to be, operating out of their main base up in Timmins, we suspect that those flights, although they don't generate much revenue, some revenue is better than none, will probably cease at that point. They have a runway strip that they developed on their Detour Lake mine site, so they'll be able to land flights right at Detour Lake. They'll be able to land in Cochrane, and they'll be able to land in Timmins. The projected required capital expenditures over the next 5 to 10 years are approximately $3.3 million. And that includes all the lighting and everything that I've mentioned before, our runway maintenance equipment for the wintertime, our plow truck, our loader, our snow blower. Those are all, they date back to 1997, 1998 models. We continue to keep them running and servicing. However, they've reached their end of life cycle. So anytime we could have issues with them. And if council remembers, a few years ago or a couple of years ago, The transmission on the Freightliner had went out and we had to request $30,000 for a replacement on that. So all these things are, we don't have a crystal ball, so we could not tell you. So in this report, we're going to, we can maintain the service level, where we are now. We continue to try to make tweaks to manage and manage the service expectation. Operations would continue on this basis until further major capital expenses come due, at which point council can decide how to proceed. This scenario, staff will explore funding options for capital improvements. Council must understand, however, that such funding is rare and will not be sufficient to remove the long-term financial burden. Effectively, the strategy defers this discussion but does not resolve it. Now, at the time of this report, and in fact, just yesterday, we found out, and I'd like to thank Wolf Haas. He helped out a lot with this report, and he helps out a lot behind the scenes. So I'd like to thank him for his input and such. But there may be an opportunity for some funding, but we're not promising anything. But there may be something that came to light, and we're exploring that right now. Should this come through for the airport, then we'll definitely report back to council with what we have at that time. We just found out about this yesterday, and there's a possibility. So we're doing all the work that we need to get the applications in and see if we can qualify for some of that. Other than that, funding for these types of airports is non-existent. They don't have passenger flights. It's just a runway strip out in the forest, and that's all they regard it as. Another option is we can cease the winter operations, where we effectively close the airport for the winter months. This has never been done before. I could not tell you what the outcome in April, May would be, as far as winter damage, frost heaving, anything like that would happen. We've never, in its 40 plus years, it's never happened. I couldn't tell you. We could reduce the winter operations and have it 5 days a week, close on the weekends. It could be ideal if you don't have winter storms on the weekends and the conditions are favorable, the airplanes can still land. We put out runway surface condition reports. We put out NOTAMs. We're always available if pilots have any concerns. We also do friction tests on the runway, so we know how slippery the runway is, and we apply sand to the runway if we need to apply sand to the runway to increase the friction. The onus is on the pilots whether they want to land or not on the airport to tell them that it's safe to land. Other options could include divestment of the airport. No, nobody wants to hear those sorts of things, but it can be a reality in some instances where we need to look at divestment of certain things, and the airport could end up on that as a discretional service. Should council determine that it no longer wants to operate it, there may be an option to sell it. In this case, staff recommends that the airport be declared surplus and posted for sale in the hope of finding a buyer willing to take the entire complex as is basis. Again, we're not in the business of selling airports. We'd have to research and probably find somebody to assist us in doing that. Should the sale be successful, it would generate revenue and remove the expenses of the dismantling. Basically, we would just turn over the keys, and it would be the responsibility of the new owner. Dismantling the airport, should council decide to close the airport and dismantle it, that's another option altogether. Again, we would need the assistance of an outside entity to see what what would be salvageable, what could go on sale as in the markets. All the lighting would have to be taken out. The tarmac would have to be ripped up. The steel building, the hangar would have to be dismantled and moved out. The terminal building would have to be demolished and moved out, and it would just become a vacant piece of municipal land. If council decides to close it during the winter, there's an approximate $45,000 in savings that could be realized from doing that. Now that's just in dollars. I mean, your wear and tear on your equipment and everything else would definitely add to that. Is there any questions?
Councilor Raganov?
Yeah, I know, Rick, thank you very much for your report. That's certainly interesting, and it sure brings some reality to what's happening with the airport. I would hate to make a decision right now, especially since you've got some funding potentially available. I would hate to see us not have medical flights going out of Kirkland Lake, and that would mean they'd have to go to Earlton or Timmins to fly out, which would be an extra 45 minutes, hopefully not in a snowstorm and hopefully not an accident in Englehart like there has been the last 3 or 4 weeks in a row. So it's certainly a lot to think about. And this is reality. This is what's happening in the world today. And thank you very much.
Councilor White?
I agree with Eugene. Now is not the time to make this decision. I do apologize that you have had no updates in 20 years. Far too often at this table, we've heard that there's been no investment year over year in departments, and they're in a state of neglect. And so that's very unfortunate. In the report, there is considerable mention of how staff has been heroic in their efforts to decrease cost. What I don't see is any active and aggressive forms of raising revenue and ideas of how to increase revenues out of that asset. I know other municipalities have had some success in ventures at their airports outside of in-the-box thinking, and I hope in the future that is something that Kirkland Lake can do. I do appreciate this very, very thorough report, as you always bring to us. It just saddens me greatly that 20 years have passed with no real impacts to the department. So thank you for this, and I prefer to wait as well.
Councilor Owen?
Yeah, it wouldn't be that difficult of a decision for me if we didn't have the medical flights out of the airport. Community safety has been a big thing for me ever since I've been on council. And I think, personally, I think there are other areas that I'd rather see cuts prior to dismantling the airport. And I think, and this is just my own thinking and just a suggestion, and I don't have the background knowledge, but I assume that our charges for using the airport are probably based on what the charges are at other community airports. Maybe we have to rethink that and look at what our costs are to operate that airport and reflect that in our pricing. I mean, if you're running a business, you wouldn't say because Joe Blow's company sells it at half the price of mine, I'm going to sell it at half price too. I'm going to sell it at a price where I can stay in business. Now that's only a drop in the bucket, I realize, but it's a drop in the bucket that we're not catching right now, I don't think. So it's just a suggestion. Maybe we have to look at a different way, a way that includes what our capital costs are gonna be, what our maintenance costs are, what our labor costs are, and include that over a period of time in the rates that we charge for the various services the airport provides. Thank you.
Yeah, Richard, I'll get to you next, Patrick. Richard, thank you for a very in-depth report. Gives us the good, the bad, and the ugly, that's for sure. I think the alternatives that you presented to us are fairly thorough and right to the point. I could live with option B, reduce the winter operations. It will save us some money. I think timing wise, we're not sure what affects the amalgamation of KL Gold and Agnico operations are going to be, and with all the other mining activity. I just think it's a little premature, as well as my fellow councillors have mentioned, to just shut her down and walk away. So I would recommend option B with give us some savings. Councillor Adams?
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, we were looking at user fees. I also went to one of those consultations on the airport. And one of the things that stood out was most of our users are from out of our town. So while we do have different set fees for people out of our town for the library and the complex, I think we should almost immediately institute a recommended fee for those not paying towards these services. I think I heard tonight, every dollar counts. And when we're making these decisions and we need this money, we almost need to bring back user fees for the next meeting and immediately charge similar to what we do for those to use the complex and the library. Just a recommendation.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that with potential funding in the air, I too would be in favor of deferring this decision until such time we know if that funding could come through and how much it would be. I don't think anybody on council enjoys having to make a decision where we're gonna cut back on a service or cancel a service. I mean, that's not why I don't think that's why any of us ran. But at the same time, we have to be responsible to all the ratepayers. And these are hard decisions, but I think until we know about this potential funding, we should defer.
I certainly don't have any objection to that personally, other than I did recommend B, but I agree. I don't think we can make that decision and as an educated decision. There's a lot of unknown factors out there yet, and we budgeted it for a deficit on it this year. So I think it's something we're going to have to look at probably every year, and maybe come up with different decisions along the road. But I don't want to rush into it this year. Any other comments? What's the motion that you have?
So the recommended motion is just to receive the report. I could add to have staff report back with the outcome of the newly presented funding, and then at that time you can further consider options. So I do have it moved by Eugene Ivanov and seconded by Lad Shaba, if you're both agreeable to that.
I'm happy with that.
Okay. So moved by Eugene Ivanov, seconded by Lad Shaba. Be it resolved that report number 2021-Dev-047 entitled Kirkland Lake Airport, future directions be received, and that staff be directed to report back to council with the outcome of the newly presented funding option to further consider options.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.10, council attendance. Clerk Megan Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we just missed 6.9,
Oop.
but that's also myself.
Okay, yeah, we'll go with the bylaw enforcement, sorry, first. Sorry about that.
No problem. So I have this report today more for information purposes for residents, staff, members of council, everyone to just be aware of the bylaw enforcement officer is in-house through the clerk's department now. It used to be contracted through a service through PADS that also went through development services, but now it is under myself. I wanted to bring forward again the report that was presented to you last April in 2020 about the process of ensuring that members of council do not interfere with that process for the bylaw officer. So just really wanted to put it out there for the public that there is a service request form on our website. So if there is anything that you do want the bylaw officer to investigate, you can submit that through the website, and that comes directly to myself and to her, and all matters are investigated. We are struggling a little bit with the follow-up sometimes because you deal with a lot of personal information, so sometimes we're not able to elaborate much on the steps that are taken. But please just know that those requests are received and investigated, and matters are taken step by step. And just a reminder to the members of council around the table and on Zoom to ensure to follow what was adopted last April. And that also goes for fellow staff members as well.
Councillor Shabbat, sorry.
Yeah, this might be slightly related to what you're saying. I think I want to follow up with what was brought up before with respect to acknowledgement of anything that the public or anybody put towards the porter of the town. I know one of your email you said that would be streamlined, but I do get complaints that things are forwarded to the porter or to the town, and no one hears back in a timely fashion or not at all about the disposition of their requests. So my question to you is, once those requests are going in through the porter to you guys, have we streamlined the system so that people at least could be acknowledged? So we got it, we're working on it, we'll get back to you. Where are we in that respect?
Through your worship to council. This is something that we are looking at as well. One of the options, we're looking at revamping the service request form a little bit to make it more streamlined with their options, and including an option that they can choose to say if they do require a response back or not. And then as well, just trying to kind of evaluate each situation. So most times there isn't a response unless it's a complicated issue that drags on, you have to loop back to, but most often it is things are submitted to go and take a look at, and then the bylaw officer goes and does her checks. So we were thinking to add that option that they can say if they require a response or not, and then we can know the people that would like to get the okay, and then sometimes people are okay to just know that it's going through the channels.
Yeah, I think people don't expect things to be done right away, but they expect that at least someone gets back to them and say, okay, we got it, we're working on it. And I don't think that's happening. That's my issue. Is anybody there sitting there say, okay, all these are coming in. We got to make sure that the department of that's supposed to go to, they're at least saying, okay, we're with you. We'll get back to you a month or two or whatnot. At least people will rest assured that their issues are being looked after.
So it's just a confirmation that we've received it, we're working on it.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, that's part of our conversation right now. So we're definitely keeping that on our radar for changes of process.
Okay. We have a motion to receive that report.
Moved by Casey Owens, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that memorandum number 2021-CLK-021M entitled Review of Unencumbered Bylaw Enforcement be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.10, councillor attendance. Clerk Megan Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council. I wanted to present this report today just because there's been some questions lately from residents, staff, and other members of council just on what are the steps or what happens if there isn't consistent attendance by council members. So I've just outlined two of the areas that come into play. So first off is the council remuneration bylaw does have a line that there is opportunity that council may pass a motion to reduce a member of council's pay by $50 per meeting missed if they so choose, as well as in the Municipal Act, if there is not a motion allowing a certain member of council to miss meetings and they miss 3 consecutive months, then the seat ends up being declared vacant. So it is important to note that that is consecutive. So as soon as if this situation arises and someone attends, then the clock basically restarts. So those are the two main areas in relation to council attendance where you would have an opportunity to pass a motion regarding it.
Any comments, questions? A little concerned about the consecutive 3 months. Like, in all honesty, if somebody on council got sick, but their intentions when they got better to come back, it just seems like the hammer's down. I have a little problem with it. I wouldn't want to see somebody kicked off of council because they had cancer and they were fighting to stay alive and things got better and then we couldn't I don't know, it's rare, I know, but I think we've gone through losing one counselor through for medical reasons, and unfortunately he didn't last very long, but you know, circumstances could have been slightly different that he would have got better, which we all had hoped for. So I don't know. I think council still has to look at each individual case. I don't think it just seems a little cold-hearted, I guess that's what I'm saying.
And in that situation, so that's where it comes into play. If there was a motion passed by council to then that might not come into play, that it could happen. So just to have the good communication with one another of, you know, each other's status. And if that was something that was an issue, they could request council to allow them to miss that much time, and then that clause doesn't come into effect.
Okay, so it could come back, it would come back to council as a motion if we were going to take that severe of an approach.
That's correct, yeah.
That's fair. Motion received.
Moved by Rick Owens, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that memorandum number 2021-CLK-022M entitled Council Attendance be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Consideration of notices and motions. None noted.
Yeah.
Yep. You needed a seconder, Rick?
Yeah, well, first, can I had it in front of me, now I've lost it.
Before the discussion, we just have to see if there's a seconder. Okay.
Okay, and Megan, could you read the, because I misplaced it, can you read the motion as written?
Councillor Owens' proposed motion is now moved by Councillor White. That staff be directed to contact the MNR to set up bear feeding stations outside residential areas the same way bear hunting guides do in an effort to keep nuisance bears out of residential areas and to increase safety for our residents, especially children and elders. And that staff be directed to ask the MNR to resonate its live trapping and relocation of nuisance bears. Or reinstate, sorry.
Councillor White?
So I do echo Rick's concern regarding the bear issue this season, and it does seem to cycle out. Some years are better than others. However, I do believe the community would be better served if the motion was to include a request to the MNRF for increased funding and personnel for the capture and relocation of nuisance bears, and this motion be circulated to other northern municipalities that may be at risk.
So the, I wasn't paying attention here, but Rick, was your motion to set up a feeding station?
That was the original motion, but both can be combined, I believe, if Councillor White is in agreement. And in terms of the proposal of feeding stations, I would be very comfortable suggesting that Kirkland Lake be used as a pilot project to see if this method is effective.
Councillor Owens?
I'm just, I can support the second part, trying to petition the Ministry of Natural Resources to try and get more staff, time, resources allocated to the problem. The whole feeding stations, I've spoken with certain bear hunters. My sister owns a hunting lodge in central Quebec behind that Vérandrie Park, and she does bear hunting, and the cost associated, the manpower that you need to have to be able to sustain bear feeding stations just creates a whole new issue when you miss days. Or so I think for this to be taken seriously when it's circulated by municipalities, we should concentrate on trying to get more funding, more personnel allocated to Ministry of Natural Resources, the bear problem, than trying to, because with the staffing they have right now, there's no way for them to be able to do this. They need more staff. So I think that I can support a motion that concentrates on that, not creating more staffing issues for a government agency.
I have some concerns about the feeding station aspect of it. I know they do it for deer. The deers aren't as aggressive, I would say, as bears, but bears really aren't that aggressive when you look at it, because if you go near them or yell at them, they take off. Some years is worse than ever, but I think when it got worse, it was mostly due to the fact that they weren't trapping them, or they were called. And well, yeah, we got somebody in Timmins. We'll send them up, in a couple of days. That's not working, and I think that's where the concentration has to be, because I'm not opposed totally to the feeding stations, but I don't think we'll get much of an ear from the MNR for that. That's my own opinion. Any other comments? Rick, sorry.
Yeah, I have no problem dropping that from the motion. But if the situation is the same next year,
Okay.
I will be back asking for it again, because I value human life. I value my grandchildren's lives a lot more than I do a bear. And, I'm tired of this argument that they say, well, you live in bear habitat. No, we don't. We live in residential habitat. There's been residents in Kirkland Lake for more than 100 years. And they're forgetting that places like Barrie, Aurelia, and Peterborough were all bear habitats too. They're just bigger residential areas. If they had this problem in Southern Ontario, and I don't want to sound like a poor Northern Ontario person, but if this was happening in Aurelia or Barrie or Peterborough, something would be done about it. And we're no less valuable than people in Southern Ontario. And my grandchildren are no less valuable than someone's grandchildren in Southern Ontario. If it was just me and my wife, I probably wouldn't be as concerned. But this has been an ongoing issue, and it is always worse in Kirkland Lake when the berry crop is bad. And there's no way that the MNR cannot know that. Bear-wise, I don't understand the logic behind it. What does it do? You phone and you say you got a bear in your backyard. and they give you a lecture about how not to attract bears. That doesn't solve the problem. You know, people have to put their garbage out. Most people do not have a house or a garage where you can put that garbage cart in. And even if you did, you're still going to, the smell's still going to attract the bear inside. The only thing that I see bear-wise doing is collecting stocks. It's good for collecting stocks, but in terms of preventing unwanted and dangerous interaction between bears and humans, I don't see it being effective. So, yeah, I have no problem with Casey's, Councillor Owen's suggestion. And like I say, if, you know, and hopefully there's a good, when there is a good berry crop, that we don't have near as many incidents.
This is true.
So it's something that the M&R can monitor and plan ahead for if they know in the, by the spring weather conditions that they're not going to have a good berry crop. And it would vary from region to region, or it could vary from region to region. So it's something they can plan for, and hopefully they'll receive the message and do a better job, because I certainly don't want to ever see a child or an elderly person in Kirkland Lake get seriously injured by a bear. So again, yeah, I'm in agreement with Councillor White's changes. I'm in agreement with Councillor Owen's changes.
Yeah.
And
Right.
hopefully we'll get some results. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Owen, I did speak with one bear hunter, and he thought there'd be an outcry from, there's a lot of bear hunters, and these outposts have basically starved because of COVID over the last 2 years. I don't think it would go over very well with to convince M&R to start these feeding stations, at least at this point. I think, again, like you say, we can have another look at it next year to see what how the conditions are for in the bush for blueberries and different feed for the bears. So I would support the revised motion.
So Councillor Owen, just to clarify, we're taking away the first part about the feeding stations.
Affirmative.
Okay, and then I've added Councillor White's. So the motion reads as moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that staff be directed to ask the M&R to reinstate its live trapping and relocation of nuisance bears, and request M&R for increased funding and personnel for the capture and relocation of nuisance bears. And that staff be directed to circulate this motion to other municipalities in the north that are also currently underserved by this ministry.
All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Introduction, reading, and consideration of bylaws.
Okay, we've got a few bylaws here this evening. First one, moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Eugene Ivanoff. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-078, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with Andrews Engineer for construction services for the underground tunnel inspection.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Moved by Lad Shaba, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-079, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with Miller Paving Limited for construction services for the resurfacing of Nipissing Lane.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Moved by Rick Owens, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-080, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with Mid-North Recycling for the purchase and disposal of scrap metal from the corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Moved by Lad Shaba, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read at first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-081, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute documents related to the sale of 12 Kirkland Avenue, Swastika to Gary and Penny Hornell.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Last bylaw, moved by Casey Owens, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-082, being a bylaw to authorize the extension and amendment of Schedule A of an agreement with Bragg Communications, Inc., Eastlink, for installation and operation of equipment on communication towers.
All in favor? Motion carried. Questions from council to staff? I believe there's 2 questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor White.
Sorry, I do normally like to write it ahead of time so Megan has it, but it just occurred to me, I was wondering if we could have an update on the municipal accommodation tax. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it was supposed to come back by October, but I'm not 100% sure. So if that can be added to next meeting, I'd really appreciate it. Sorry about that, Megan. I like to usually write an email.
Yep.
No problem. For the questions that are included for tonight, the first one regarding, just trying to open it here, regarding the Gull Lake water levels. Is Jim Roman still on the line that maybe wants to speak to this?
Yes, through your worship, the council. I was asked last week about the water levels at Belle Lake. Yes, they appear quite low, but they are within the operating range that was established when the water treatment plant was built. The intent is to have the water level quite low before it freezes over, and we would expect the levels to return to a more reasonable or level come springtime. If it does turn out to be an issue, we do have the ability to recharge the lake through the pipeline that we have that runs to the pump house at McTavish Lake. But as it stands right now, it's while it's at probably the low end of the operating level, it is within range. So it's not a concern at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. We have one question, Councillor Shaba.
Yeah, I just want to follow up, Jim. Thank you for your response. You did send that to me earlier this week because I have a ratepayer that asked the same question. My question to that as a follow-up is, you indicated that Gull Lake could be recharged from McTavish Lake. Now, could you maybe tell us the condition of the pump and the pipe system from McTavish to Gull Lake? I mean, are they? I take it that they are operational, and I take it that they're maintained. They're being maintained, and they're starting out once in a while. I mean, are they ready to go to fire up when they need to? Can you let us know? And my other question is that I know you know all of this, but I don't know. How do you know when that Gull Lake is too low? You guys have a, I don't know, dipstick somewhere that you measure everything? I don't know. How do you know when it's just too low, and then you get to that critical point, and then you got to start up the recharging from McTavish? Thank you very much.
Well, as I said, there's an actual operating range for the water level at Gull Lake that runs from about 319 to 320 meters above sea level. Now, we're down at the low end of that, but they are able to measure it at the water plant, and they actually do record it on a regular basis. And as I said, they've established operating levels depending on the time of year, and you do want the water level to be lower just before freeze up. So as far as recharging it from McTavish Lake, about 10 years ago, the town invested in relining all the joints in that pipeline from McTavish. So the line is in good shape. The pump house itself is a little worse for wear. It's something we need to look at. We've actually considered possibly decommissioning the pump house and just putting in the necessary connections there where, should we ever need to pump water from McTavish, that we could connect a large pump up at that time. So it's something that we're going to be looking at in the future. But as it stands now, we are capable of pumping if we need to.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Any other question?
Okay, the second question was submitted by Councillor Ivanov regarding some questions of outstanding taxes and how many properties were registered this year, and what kind of effort is the town making to collect the rental income. So speaking with the Treasury Department, this information actually would take a significant amount of staff time to formulate. So we would suggest in the next section, if you want to propose a notice of motion.
And that's what I'll do.
We can get staff directed through a motion of council.
Okay, motion to receive.
Moved by, let's see, Stacy White, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that the questions from council be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Any notices of motion? Okay, we'll start here and work our way around. Councilor Ivanov.
I would like a report on the substantial amount of uncollected taxes. How many Kirkland Lake properties have outstanding taxes of more than 1, 2, 3 years or more? How many of these properties were registered this year? How many delinquent taxpayer owners own more than one property, which I assume are secondary properties and are rental properties? And what legal efforts is the town making to collect this rental income?
Okay.
I have one other.
Okay, go ahead.
I had a ratepayer ask me to visit the old town site of Shapihughes Village. There are many, many nice homes in the village, but there are also many, many abandoned buildings and buildings that are in distress. My understanding is the town of Kirkland Lake currently does all water line and sewer repairs. It also does snow removal in the village. Is there anything that can be done to clean up this area and enforce building standards? I also understand that this land is part of an old mining claim owned by a local family that have no interest in owning this property and wish to give it to the town. I would like to have a report on what could be done.
Just after that, to my last count, got 23 houses there in the village, 23. Derelict buildings, 23.
Did you have a?
Yeah, oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay, yeah. Okay. Actually, I have a couple. I only sent you, Megan, I only sent you one, but I have another one, if you don't mind me. This is one of the meetings that I've, one of the organizations I belong to, and meetings that I attended in which land acknowledgement has now been an item on the agenda. So I'm not too sure how to word this, if the staff be directed to do so, or if it's the council be asked to, where am I thinking? To consider and approve a land acknowledgement as an agenda item. So I leave it up to you, Megan, to tell me what I should do. But I'm looking at in future, after a discussion, hopefully down the road, down the line, land acknowledgement will be part of our agenda item. And the second part of the motion would be the staff be directed to come up with appropriate language after consultation with our First Nations and indigenous communities for the council to adopt going forward. That would be that's the essence of my one of the notices of motion. The other one, this discussion came up in one of our meetings in the past, and I'd like to see the breakdown of revenue stream for the solar farm that we have on Archer Drive, and how much life is it got to go. My understanding is that, when this first started, it was sold as raking in a lot of money to help the community out, to help Archer Drive in particular, but I'm not too sure where we are at this. And at some point too, maybe we can have Cap Solar, I think they're the ones that are in charge of that, to come and do a presentation to the council with respect to give us an update on the activities of the solar farm. I'm sure that the town can provide the revenue stream to get us educated, get us up to speed, and then the Cap Solar could give us an update on the operations and what lifespan is left of that solar farm. I understand that they go for 20 years and that's it, and you have to start spending money, investing money in them to get them going. For the first 20 years, 80% productivity. After that, you lose your productivity. I don't know where we are. So I hope you can, from all of that, just extract what my motion will be.
Okay, maybe before we go ahead,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask Wolf to elaborate a little bit, because this discussion came up today with Cap.
Today,
And
here,
yes,
at this meeting? No.
no,
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. Okay.
If I can just jump in quick, I just want to remind you that there's not supposed to be discussion at this time, but
No.
I trust that Wilf is just going to say something short.
Yeah.
Yeah, just something very generic. I have been in discussions with Cap Solar, and we are making arrangements for them to be in Kirkland Lake probably at the end of October, beginning of November. I'm trying to get it to be at the same time as you have a council meeting, so that the gentleman does come in and brief council, both on what the current operations are as well as the future prospects. In terms of the financial statements are being approved tomorrow, I believe. And that will be reviewed in the presentation with council as well.
good time.
Oh,
Councilor Owen.
Yeah, I don't want to break any rules here, but I was also contacted by a person in Chappie Hughes, and that person has put in a request for service on some of the buildings there. And the big concern for her was the potential fire, the potential for a major fire. I will cause the following motion to be moved that council's next meeting, staff be directed to investigate fleet management programs that would be suitable for the town's needs and report back findings and cost estimates to council. The reason for this motion at this time is hopefully it could be included in next year's budget.
We need to, no, okay. Councilors' reports? Well, I think if you don't mind, then I'll speak on behalf of a number of councilors that went to the circle of, what's it called again? Space, Sir?
Sorry, it was the acknowledgement.
Yeah, what was the group? Yeah, but it was put on by the circle, keeper of the circle. That's what it is. Sorry about that. They had a very successful day and an awareness, and I think it's a start to reconciliation. Still a long way to go, but I think a lot of Canadians and our own community in general got a wake-up call after hearing all the tragedy that took place at these remote schools. So the group did a very, very good job. Was well attended. A lot of people from out of town as well, from the tri-towns. And there was one member, she's the head of that particular group from the Northwest Territories. She was here as well. I think she's here this week. And I have a meeting with her as well. So congratulations to the group for putting on, bring that awareness to the town of Kirkland Lake, and I think it was well received and well attended. And thank you, fellow councillors, for a good show, showing up. Nothing else noted?
I think so. Councilors' reports moved by Stacy White, seconded by Eugene Ivanoff. Be it resolved that the verbal updates from members of council be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 12.1, Hydro 1 forestry work.
This correspondence was received by my office with the request to circulate to the community, so I thought it would be best to put it on the agenda for staff, council, and residents to know that Hydro 1 is scheduled to complete vegetation maintenance on the right-of-way in your community in 2022. So there is a contact there if there is further questions or concerns, but at this time, this is the extent of my information on it.
Motion to receive the report.
Moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that the notice from Hydro 1 for forestry work in the KL area be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Motion to move into a in-camera session.
Moved by Lad Shaba, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that council move into a closed meeting pursuant to section 239(2) to discuss 4 land disposition matters.
All in favor? Motion carried. We'll have a brief break. Item number 14, any matters noted from the closed session? None noted. Confirmation bylaw.
Moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Lad Shaba. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-083, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held October 5th, 2021.
All in favor? Motion carried. Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Lad Shaba, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that that council adjourn the October 5th, 2021 regular meeting of council.
All in favor? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.